Welcome to the world of today. Our planet sustains an incredible global population of more than 7 billion people. We live out our lives playing soccer, throwing birthday parties, sleeping in late, and writing email. Our modern lives made possible because we no longer spend the majority of our days hunting and gathering for food. As a species, we have perfected and refined methods of farming, yielding more and more food out of less and less land to help feed our growing population. Now, most of us plan what we'll eat and when, falling asleep with full stomachs. But despite all our progress, close to 1 billion people go to sleep every night, hungry.
Overpopulation.
Find out more about...
Way back in 1950, when my parents were born, there were 2.5 billion people on this planet. By the time I arrived in 1985, this had doubled to 5 billion people. Today, there are roughly 7 billion, and by the time I'll retire, it's expected to be around 10 billion people. That means that it took from the beginning of humanity 200,000 years ago until 1950 to reach 2.5 billion people, but it will only take 100 more years to add 3 times that amount. In other words, the population is growing exponentially. Let me put it differently. By the time you've reached the end of this video, about 300 people have been added to the planet. In an hour from now, there will be 8,500 more people, and this time tomorrow, we'll have 200,000 new Pride and Joy. 1.4 million per week, and 76 million per year. And when there are more people, there are more mouths to be fed. In fact, there's more demand for all the stuff that we need to live. Energy, water, food, and space. Imagine that the world's population has tripled since the 1950s. That means that we need 3 times as much oil, wood, coal, uranium, electricity, potable water, fish, meat, cereals, vegetables, and of course space. Space to live, but also to grow the food and produce the goods that we need. But wait a minute, the Earth didn't increase by threefold now, did it? No, it didn't. We still have the same amount of natural resources we had then, or actually less, as we've kept consuming in the meantime. So this decreasing amount of natural resources has to be shared with an increasing amount of people. Oh, and did I mention that these people are consuming more individually as well? And what will we do when shortages appear? Take water for instance. If the beginning of a river flows through one country, and they use all the water they need, and leave too little water to flow into the following country, what would you do? Fight over it? And how about oil? If your country has a monopoly on oil and shortages appear,
The pyramid is a traditional way of visualizing and explaining the age structure of a society. If you draw a chart with each age group represented by a bar, and each bar ranged one above the other, youngest at the bottom, oldest at the top, and with the sexes separated, you get a simple shape. In 1970 that shape was a pyramid, because the largest segment of the global population was the youngest, 0 to 5 years old comprising 14% of the total, followed by the next youngest, 6 to 10 with 13%, and so on in regular increments until, above 85 years old, there were so few people that the shape vanished into a point. The pyramid was characteristic of human populations pretty much since the day organised societies emerged. With lifespans short and mortality high, children were always the most, and old people the least numerous group. A population chart of England in 1700 looks like a pyramid. But now look at the chart of the global population in 2015. It looks more like the dome of the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. than something you find along the Nile. Young children are still the largest group, but now make up only 10% of the population, and those above them are almost as big, with 9.5. The angle of the slope changes most markedly only after the age of about 40. In 1970, the youngest had not only been the largest, but also the fastest growing section of the population. But between 1970 and 2015, the population aged 0 to 19 grew by only 42%, whereas the population aged 20 to 39 rose by 128%. This group added almost twice as many people to the overall numbers than the group aged below 20. There are also now over 50 million people above 85, so the dome of 2015, the dominating influence upon the global population was the fertility rate. That's the number of children a woman can expect to bear during her lifetime. It fell dramatically over the period, meaning that the world shifted from having larger to smaller families. But in 2015 to 60, the biggest influence upon the population will be ageing. Small families are already the norm. The fall in fertility is slowing down, and now everyone's living longer than their parents, dramatically so in developing countries. So, by 2060, the dome will have come and gone, and now the shape of the population looks more like a column, or perhaps an old-fashioned beehive. It's a little fatter near the bottom, and curves in at the top. But up to the age of about 50, the generations are of almost equal size, and the shape has vertical sides. The size of the Earth's population is still rising, from 7.2 billion in 2015 to 9.5 billion in 2060. But, according to calculations by Emi Suzuki and Wolfgang Fengler of the World Bank, 2/3 of the extra 2.2 billion people will come from the older age groups, those aged 40 to 59 and between 60 and 79, not from the younger. The increase in the last, oldest segment is especially marked. Between 2015 and 2060, the number of 60 to 79-year-olds will double to 850 million. That's more than 4 times the increase in the number of children and teenagers, which will rise by only 200 million, or 8%. The numbers of the oldest people of all, those above 85, will rise at the fastest rate, by 281% in 2015 to 60, but from a much lower base, so they do not add as many people to the total. For all of history, humans have lived in societies dominated, in numbers at least, by children. By 2060, children will be no more numerous than any other.
What do we mean when we talk about birth rate and death rate? Well, birth rate refers to the number of babies born each year. In the past, poor sanitation, nutrition, and health care caused many children to die. More than 50% of the world's population now live in cities where people may find better living conditions. Access to family planning and education tend to result in women having fewer babies. Today, many young couples postpone parenthood until they feel ready. In some cases, they decide not to have any children. Death rate refers to the number of deaths each year. Some key factors that have reduced death rates are clean water, improved living conditions, health services, and agriculture production. Disasters and epidemics can dramatically increase death rates. The resulting difference between birth and death rates is called natural increase.